what we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna start here, and we're gonna end up here, okay? Maybe not quite this far along, but pretty darn close. That's the plan anyway, okay? And we're just gonna keep going through the steps and showing you how to do this. Keep in mind I'm working off one of these gold lathes tonight, which, you know, wouldn't be my first choice, but it's not a bad lathe.
What do you have at home?
I have Vicmark. I have a VL, well actually I have a VL 300, which is a 24-inch swing, so I can do big stuff. I have a VL 200 that my wife took over from me. That has a 16-inch swing, and she's pretty well laid claim to that. And then I actually have a VL 100, which is the little bitty, the little small lathe. Story behind that, one year at Utah Symposium, and this again when it was at BYU, it was the night of the swap meet, and I was going out to my parking lot to dump my stuff off so I could start doing some shopping. And there was an older fella, and he was kind of reaching over the trunk of his car and stuff, and I go, "What are you doing here? Can I help you? What are you doing here?" He goes, "Oh, I got to get my little lathe out. I want to put it out here for the swap meet and try and sell it." And I go, "What is it?" And it was a little VL 100 Vicmark, and I go, "Oh, that's kind of a nice lathe. How much are you asking for it?" He goes, "Oh, not a whole lot. I was just going to add," he threw me out a price. It's like, you know what? Leave that there for now. I will get my truck and we'll put it in my truck instead of putting it out on a table, and I will buy it from you. And I bought that lathe, I think about 12 or 13 years ago, and it didn't have a motor with it. It was just a lathe. And I bought it because I was dating my wife at the time, and she was kind of interested in turning, and I was going to show her how to turn on it and all that. Well, by the time I got the motor set up on it and all that, I'd already showed her how to turn on my 200, and it had variable speed and all that, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep this one. And so I ended up having to buy myself a 300, and that 100 has sat on the counter. I've had it for 13 years, and I've never turned a piece of wood on it yet.
You want to sell it?
Perhaps. I know Roger at Craft Supplies, every year when I'm there, he goes, "You still got that 100? You want to sell it yet?" He goes, "Well, we would buy that in a second." But it's a good lathe, I just haven't used it. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to start with a piece of wood like this. I have an old school teacher, so I do need to keep my notes. Basically, we're going to start with a rough blank. I cut it on the bandsaw already. I drilled a 5/16 hole down the center because we're going to put it on a screw chuck, okay? Now, the hole that I drilled, I do everything, all of those plotters and stuff, started on a screw chuck. Even the really thin ones that are only about an inch thick, what you do is you block up your screw so only so much sticks out. But that one clear on the left, that big, I don't know, 18-inch or 17-inch one that was 5/4 mahogany, I did that whole thing with about a 1/2 inch of this screw thread in the front of that bowl, and it works just fine. Okay.
Would you discuss the type of woods you use?
Okay, I will. Good point. That's right here on my list, first thing. When I'm doing the beading or the basket weave or basket illusion, basket delusion, whatever you want to call it, probably cherry is my favorite wood. Maple would probably be second. I like beading the soft maple, or I like beading the hard maple better. I like turning the soft maple better. And then mahogany works fine too. The problem with mahogany is that imparts that color into the wood, or the wood is of color. So as you color it later, you have to take that into consideration with your markers. For those of you that saw the show that we had in November, I had a big piece, I didn't bring it with me today, a big piece out of yellow heart or Pau Amarello. That was really nice to turn, really nice to bead. The problem is when I was coloring it, when I was using blue markers, they turned green because the background color of the wood was already yellow. So that's one little, you know, situation you have to deal with. So, but so long as the fine-grained, even-grained wood, like a maple or a cherry, I have done ash and elm. They're not much fun because of the difference in the spring wood and the summer wood and all that kind of stuff. I like sticking with the finer grained woods better. Okay, so all I did with this, I drilled a 5/16 hole about an inch deep or so. We're going to screw it on the screw center. I used a little thickness shim here so we don't go too deep with it and all that kind of stuff. It's got a little wobble to it, but that really doesn't matter that much.
See what kind of wood you're using?
This is, well, I kind of got a combination. This piece is hard maple. What we're going to do, we're going to start with this piece, and I'm going to shape the outside of it, and then show you how to beat it. Let's cut that out.
Did you pre-laminate that, or is that a?
It's a solid block. It's a solid block. It's like right over there. That chunk there, I brought it up here and diced it into 6-inch pieces. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this piece first. We're going to shape the outside of it. I'm going to show you how to do the beadwork on the outside, show you how to do the fastening for when we do the second thing. If I'm doing a bowl that I want to have a flat bottom on, like that one over there on the table, then what I'll do is I'll do a recess into it. Okay? If I'm doing a bowl where I want the bottom to be rounded, like this one, typically then I'll do a tenon. Now when I'm doing a recess on these, it's amazing how much you can turn. Here it is, this one's a tenon because this one's going to be a rounded bottom bowl. Probably, not quite, but it'll be that. This one, keep in mind it's only wood. This one is done with a recess because then what I do is I sculpt that down and smooth it off and all that, and we're going to do that later as we get going. Yes, I turn this whole plier, and we can pass this one around. This is like the latest one. I just finished burning it last night actually. But I did turn the whole thing with this recess that's about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch deep, and it held well. Okay, I did that using this chuck here.
How come you made it so deep, Doug?
I know. I do remember years ago, we had Max Krimmel here, and if you don't know Max does alabaster turnings, and he had a big bowl, you know, about this big, and he'd put his hand on the outside of it, and you could see it through the alabaster, and somebody in the club asked him, they go, God, Max, what is that? Is that like 1/8 of an inch thick? And Max goes, oh, God, no, you'd be crazy to go 1/8 of an inch. He goes, I think it's about 5/32. So that's kind of like that. You'd be crazy to go 1/8 of an inch. So, do not try this at home unless you're a trained professional. Gotta know when to let go. That will more than hold that piece of wood. Okay? Okay. We're going to take it to this step here, basically. We will, let's see, we got enough people not here that we can pass this around. That's where we're going right now. And we're just going to keep working our way down the row. Okay. I brought all my tools that I'm going to use for this job here. Not much. A gouge, a parting tool, and really that's it. I also brought a detail gouge, but I don't know if we're going to use it because we're not doing a tenon. If I do a tenon, then I do a detail gouge and my beading tools. That's it. I prefer this tool rest to start with. This is one Steve Sinner makes and sells. Steve used to bring these to our symposium and sell them, and actually he gave me this one so I could see how it works. He kind of quit coming to our symposium this past year because at the last symposium people took about $400 worth of his stuff. without paying for it, so he was not happy about that. And I don't blame him. Okay, I have a tendency to turn fairly fast. I don't know how fast, because my lathe at home does not have a speedometer on it. I just do it by sound, do it by feel. The gouges that I'm using, we'll pass this one around. Oh, do you want to see that? I have like 4 gouges sitting there. They're all the same. They just are in different handles. I use the Ellsworth grind bowl gouge. Some of them are different brands, so the grind is a little bit different. I don't mind that, because when I'm turning, I'll find that, you know, maybe someday one gouge isn't working right. I'll set it aside, I'll grab one of the others and use it, and it works fine. Also, if I have like 3 or 4 of them sitting there, I don't have to stop and sharpen as often either. So be careful, it is sharp. That one happens to be set up to go in a Stewart batty handle. Just the Stewart gave me a handle. Typically I like Trembosh handles. This one's a one-way handle. I kind of like it for roughing stuff out because it's big. You don't really grab onto it, you just kind of caress it. Works pretty good. This one here is a Johannes Mikkelsen handle. It's got weight in it, it's heavy. It's the absolute opposite of a Stewart batty handle being really light and all that kind of stuff. The reason I got this handle, some of you have heard this story. It was at our symposium. It was part of the live auction one night, and there was 2 Johannes Mikkelsen handles. It was the year he demoed, and they go, okay, who's going to bid on these and all? And so I was bidding on the handles, and finally I took it up to like 75, 85 bucks, something like that, and I got the bid, and then the auctioneer goes, okay, which one do you want? Well, I thought I was going to get them both. He goes, no, you only get one. So I took the bigger one. But is this lathe a little high for me? Yes. Are we going to be able to get by with turning? Yes. All we're going to do, we're just going to screw up this block first. The grain of this piece is running crosswise. It's running this way. That's why I'm cutting this way. You never go straight into end grain with any type of gouge. And we are round. Okay. People say, well, you know, first of all, with this job here, oh, we have one little saw mark there. We'll try and get it out. Good enough. I'm going to just knock those corners off a little bit, because that is basically a rotating razor blade, and if you were to grab it, touch it, bump it, whatever, it'll slice right into you. Okay? We're going to put our recess in. We're going to say about this big. I'm only touching one point. I'm touching the downhill point. If you touch the uphill point, then it comes around and pokes you in the forehead. You don't want to do that. That should be good enough. Let's take one more look at it. Holding this off to the side, yeah, that'll be okay. Okay, for cutting my recess, I use a parting tool. This one happens to be an Ashley Isles parting tool. This one actually is one of Doc Thode's. It was in one of the boxes of stuff I bought at his auction. And Doc Thode is an old member who we all kind of miss. He's no longer with us. And instead of putting it straight in like so, I can put it in at an angle because I want my recess to be a little dovetailed. Now because the guys sitting in the front row are a little older, and not moving quite as fast as they used to. I'm going to make a fairly deep recess because I don't want to have it coming off at them. When you do demos, you sometimes have to do things a little different. Actually, that's not too bad. To make sure that people are going to be safe. I like all my gouges to get the opportunity to play, so we'll use this one. All I'm trying to do here, make sure I have a nice smooth footing for that truck to sit on. And that, probably pretty good. If I wanted to, I could use a skew and clean that up a little bit. But I don't have a skew anyway, so I'm not going to. I don't have one with me, I don't think. Yeah, maybe I do, but I'm not going to. We're going to make it work. All we're going to do now is shape. We're going to speed this up a little bit. These shavings are all going to come this way, grain's going this way. To cut with the grain, we're going to be cutting from small to big. Probably what I'll do, we'll cut for a little while and then I'll switch to tool rest. I brought a curved tool rest. Now, I could stand over here and turn this way, and that way I'm not reaching over and all that kind of stuff, but you guys wouldn't be able to see anything, and it's not going to work that well in this situation. So what I'm doing is I'm just doing a pull cut. I could do a push cut this way, I could do it however I wanted. Doesn't matter. I'm just wide out enough to clean up. That's it. Covered around pretty good.
Is that hard maple as well? Yeah.
That is hard maple. We're going to switch to this tool rest. This is a one-way. They're outside curved tool rest. I'm not a big one-way fan, just because the one-way people, if you've ever dealt with them, they're a little bit on the arrogant side. Okay, not a little bit, a lot. Their motto is, their unofficial company motto is, one way, our way. If you don't like it, go buy somebody else's stuff. But I do like this tool rest. I also, for my bigger platters, I do have the one-way bowl steady, the two wheels that fit behind the platter and all that. It kind of works okay, We're just going to try and get a nice, smooth curve. If you have questions during this whole thing, don't be afraid to holler out, throw stuff if you need to. Keep in mind I taught public education for 27 or 80 years, so.
Hey, Doug, as a beginner, would you recommend adjusting the tool rest while we're both running? I always shut my mouth.
No. Well, see this tool rest has a nice rounded edge. So it catches the wood, it just pretty well slides over it. No, you want to shut the lathe off before you adjust the tool rest. Yeah. Boy, you guys are going to be a tough crowd tonight, aren't you? Here I braved coming through the blizzard just to come here and demo tonight. And I'm still catching static. Okay. We'll take a look at it. Don't grab a hold of this. Like I said, this edge here is sharp. It is going to chew you up. We got a little bit of stuff down here I want to take care of yet. You can see these shavings I'm getting. I mean, they're like angel hair. But, okay, let's see, we haven't used this yet. This one's my newest one. This is a Trent Bosch gouge. It's actually a Hamlet gouge that Trent is selling now. Okay. What I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to do a shearing cut. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my gouge dropped down so my cutting edge, the actual cutting edge, is about at a 45-degree angle. Kind of hard with this tool rest as big as it is, but what I'm going to do now, still got one I need to fix. We're going to round over this top edge a little bit because that's where I'm going to start with my beading. I also want to make sure that this top edge is running true. Whoops. Let's hold it this way. There we go. Okay. When I'm sharpening my gouges, I use the Ellsworth jig on all my bowl gouges. And I use the one-way system on my detail gouges and other things. Okay, let's see where we're at. That's okay. Okay, the other day, there's so much information out available. A couple months ago, October, basket illusion demystified. How many read the article? How many are ready to be mystified now? Because what I do isn't what this guy does. I do some of the same stuff, but I do a lot of different stuff. First of all, that piece there has like 96 divisions in it, radial divisions, and it's like 30 rows high. Those bigger platters have 144 divisions and about 50 some rows of beads. So I'm looking at 12 to 14,000 little rectangles. He's looking at like 800, no, a little more than that. But there is information out there. I even read the article on the introduction to critique for wood turning, so I wouldn't be too harmful to anybody tonight and hurt their feelings. So, okay. Typically, one reason I'm able to do those pieces quicker than I used to, and granted they still take a while, the bigger platters and stuff take 30 to 35 hours. The turning is only a couple hours. It's the burning of lines and the coloring. That big bowl in front of Clarence there, just the burning of that is probably going to take me about 8 or 9 hours burning the lines, because it takes about a minute a line. And that one's got 192 lines on both sides. Wow. That's 390 whatever, 84 lines on it. So that's, you know, at least, and my hand gets tired. So that's like at least 8 or 9 hours just to burn those lines on that one. I'm not done yet. I've learned that if I take care and do a little better job of cutting as I'm cutting, I've pretty well eliminated my sanding. I don't sand this now. I'm going to beat it. Yeah, it has a few little tool marks in it that I typically would try and get out, but for demo purposes, we're not going to worry about it, okay? We're going to go ahead and beat it. Because once I get done beating it, actually once I get done burning it, the burn actually raises the grain where the knife goes in and leaves a rough surface, so I have to sand it then anyway. So what I do is I just eliminate one sanding and replace it with another one. When I first started doing bowls, the beading tools come like this. These are the Sorbies. I typically use the Sorbies, just because that's what I started with. First time I went to do a bowl, the tool kept getting in the way and I couldn't get it around, you know, to come straight into the bowl, because you want to enter the beading tool perpendicular to the surface. So what I did is I bought another one and I beat it out of the handle and bought the little Sorby little baby handle, so now I can fit it inside bowls and bead with that. The problem is this one's a 3/16 beading tool, and virtually all of my beading now I'm using the 1/8 inch, just because it allows me more finer detail when I'm doing the coloring. So what we're going to do, I'm going to set my tool rest first so that the tool is about at midpoint. And we're just going to do this corner here first. And this one is the 3/16, because what I've started to do on these bowls is I'll do a rim, typically of 3/16, and then the rest of the beading is 1/8 inch, just because supposedly that makes it look more like a basket, I guess. That's what people tell me. So all I'm going to do, we're just going to put this first bead in, and that looks pretty good. And as you're beading, you can tell whether you're going far enough, because you're looking at the surface. If it all becomes the same color, then you've got an even contact with it, okay? Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start beading down here. Now this one's pretty small. We're going to go ahead and bead all the way down to about here, all in one shot. If I'm doing the big platters, especially on the inside, what I do is I typically always do the outside first, and then go, and I'll do about 15 or 25 beads at a time, and then come back, then do those, then work down, do 15 or 25 more, excuse me, then work those and all that. What I'm trying to do when beading is I'm not going full depth all the way in, all in one shot. I am marking them out first. Just lightly, with the tool rest at about the center of the piece. Now the reason I do 25 sometimes on the bigger pieces is 25 is like my lucky number. It's my birthday, and my wife's birthday, and my anniversary. I actually got married on my birthday, so I'd never forget my anniversary.
Now you don't forget your birthday.
Yeah. Well, if you wait until you get to be 50, like, or 51 like I did before you get married, then you can work out a lot of those. Okay, we're going to quit there, because I'm going to put those jaws in there to expand. I don't want to go all the way in, because then it's going to give us a weak spot. So now what I'm going to do, we're going to just go in a little deeper at that same setting. I'm not trying to go all the way full bead.
You're just pushing straight in.
I'm pushing straight in. I'm doing a little bit of this. I'm doing a little bit of this. Yeah, you know, depending on the wood. But I like to, actually when we get further along, then I really start moving it around a little bit. But I'm moving up and down a little. I'm moving it back and forth a little. Okay.
How often do you have to sharpen that tool?
Question?
How often do you have to sharpen that tool?
Somebody asked me that. I did this same demo in April at North Dakota at their symposium, and somebody asked me that, said, how often do you sharpen the tool? I go, I don't know, I've only been doing this a year. I don't sharpen this tool very, very often at all. Once in a great while, I'll take my rotary tool with a diamond hone and clean out the flute. 99% of the sharpening on this tool is this is just one of these jobbers, and this is a cheap Harbor Freight one. They used to have a plastic back and it keeps falling apart, and I do that. Good enough. okay? But I touch the flute very seldom. What I did do to this one, if you go look at the beading tools out on the shelf or out on the wall, you can buy a whole set of them. And they have an 1/8 inch one, a 3/16, a quarter, a 5/16, a 3/8 and a half, I think. I bought the whole set, because that's what you're supposed to do. Waste of time. I use this one and the 3/16 all the time. I don't use the other ones. Now, what I would like to do somewhere down the road is I would like to modify one of my wider ones and grind the points back a little so it's more of a pillow as opposed to a half round. And then maybe I'll use it. With these, I did modify these a little because when you buy them here at the store, these angles are almost like at 45° off of the points and back, and when you're moving them around, you're scuffing the sides of the other beads. So mine, I've ground back a bunch, and we'll pass this around. Now what I like to do, and this is where it's different from the fella in the magazine, I've got my tool rest raised pretty high. Actually, I might even go a little higher. Because what I like doing, I don't know if there's any truth to it or not, but it seems to work for me and I like it and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm doing now, whatever, I'm gonna aim my tool down, like so, to the center point of the wood, but by pointing it down so far, at least in my mind, I've turned it into a negative rake scraper, kind of. We're getting a little vibration. I can feel it. I can hear it. I think it must be the lathe because I don't get it at home. Now, let's finish these off. And again, I'm not trying to get too aggressive. If I wanted those deeper, I would use this tool here, which is like called the Easy Beater, which you just stick in the grooves and make them deeper. We're not going to do that on this one. And if I wanted to color them, which we probably will do, the secret is you can use wire. A lot of you have used wire before on turnings and stuff to burn lines and stuff. How many have done that? Tom, question?
Doug, when you first started, you worked from the rim down. Your next set of cuts, you worked from the bottom up, and the next set you came from the rim back down. Is there any reason for doing that? Is it just
no, I started the rim with the first cut just because that's where my odd bead is, and so I want to start there.
Right.
And I don't really care what ends up at the bottom. I know David always wanted to have, I don't know if he wanted to have a donut or he wanted to have a circle, whatever. I don't really care what happens down here, but where I have my odd bead, I need to start there to kind of go from. But as far as alternating back and forth, that really doesn't matter. I guess partly because of the curve of this piece, if I came down to the bottom, I had my tool rest where I wanted it down here, so I'd start there and then readjust my tool rest. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
That Easy Beater, you sharpen that the same way as
Yep.
to hone the top?
I hone the top. I don't know that I have ever taken a diamond stone to these two edges, or these two flutes.
Because the flute would be irregular if you
Yeah.
touched it.
Yeah, so I just do it that way as well. You can do a little shaping of the beads with it and stuff. I use it primarily just to hollow them out. Now what we're gonna do, to darken these lines, and I do it sometimes and sometimes I don't, it depends what look I'm looking for. The easiest way, because yeah, wire would work good up here and here, and when we're talking wire, we're talking piano wire, we're talking guitar string wire, we're talking, you know, something like that in handles and burn it. You go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you say, excuse me, do you have countertop material? And they go, yes, we do. So you go, they say, where are your samples? They go, well, they're right around the corner. So it's like, okay, you stay there at your desk and I will go around the corner, and you pick up 10 or 12 of them and you take them home. Now, the ironic part is, I don't like the Formica ones. Everybody thinks, oh, you use Formica. I don't like Formica. Formica is thicker than the other brands, which is a good thing for countertops, not so good when you're doing burning. I like the thinner ones. So all we're gonna do, we're gonna crank this puppy up a little. And all we're gonna do done. And now we've scorched those lines. If I pushed harder, I could make them darker or whatever, I'm not that concerned. Okay, so now with this piece, we're done turning this. On the outside at least. But now we need to mark our lines. Okay? Let's get rid of these. Chucky, here you are. I should have set this up before, but I didn't. We're going to take this off. Now, Clarence actually is the one that set me up with this company. As far as an index plate, I don't really like it, but I haven't found a better one yet.
It's not my fault.
I know it. I called the company and I said, you got to make a bigger one, because the same thing on my lathe is on this lathe. First of all, you're supposed to put a little pointer through these holes. Well, you can't, and their directions say, oh, you just set up a little jig here and you slide your pointer in on top of your lathe. Well, you can't even hit the thing hardly, and you certainly can't get to the bottom holes. So I told them, it's like, keep making this one for those who have small lathes, but make a big one. Okay, first of all, this one has 14 holes, 36, 48, 60. The 14's an old wheelwright thing from stagecoaches and all that kind of stuff. The 36, 48, and 60 are fine. I told them if you'd make one that was about 18 inches in diameter, then you'd have room for 72, 96, 120, 144. We'll get back to you, okay? Also, the thing I don't like about it, especially when doing a platter, if I have a platter up against here, in the chuck, there's no room for me to work. So what I do with my lathe at home, this is actually a, this goes here. This is actually 1.25 to 1 inch adapter, met up with a 1 to 1.25 inch adapter. Yeah, I know. Which allows me to position the chuck further away from the lathe so that I have room to put this fine contraption. And believe it or not, this is homemade. Actually, it was the tool rest for an old hollowing system, an old Jameson copy hollowing system, and I realized I still had it, so I used it for this. And we're gonna set that here, and we're gonna clamp it in with some vice grips. Trying to think, the bed of this lays a lot thinner than mine, so I gotta readjust.
You ever heard of Alisam? A-L-I-S-A-M? Alisam Engineering makes a plate, but it's got the same issue. It's about that size.
Yeah,
But it's much more rigid,
Really?
and it has many more holes in it.
Ooh. This still work. Mine's a 24-inch lathe, or 24-inch swing, so it's still gonna work. The little pointer that comes with this is like this long, and it's aluminum, it's got a little blue plastic now. I made my own. This is an old Phillips screwdriver out of one of those cheapy tool sets. And look at that, fits right away. Okay, now, balancing a pencil on a tool rest, not a very easy task. Balancing a pencil on a block of wood, look, no hands, I can do it. However, I was worried about that. It'll work. The stem needs to be a little longer, my tool rest a little higher, and all that kind of stuff. This is for small pieces. For my big platters, I've got a bigger block. It'll work. We should be at center, we're not. It's gonna be okay, okay? All we're gonna do, and I think we're gonna go 48. Where are these at? Yeah, that's good. We're gonna say we're at 48. All I'm gonna do, draw a line. I like using round pencils. That way I know they're the same spot, or the same thickness all the time, that I'm not rotating a hexagonal pencil. We're gonna mark our lines like so, like so, like so, boom, boom. Now, what I used to do on my bigger platters, like I said, I normally do 144 on the 15 and 16 inch ones, 120 on the smaller ones. On the really big ones, like that Pau Amarello one and that big bowl, I do 192 divisions. I like splitting things in half. So if I'm doing 144, instead of doing 48 3 times, I do 36, divided in half to make 72, divided in half to make 144. I can visualize half of something better than I can a third of something. Now, I used to, if I wanted to make this like 96, I used to measure each of these segments with the calipers, mark where half is, draw a line, then come back, put it on. No, that's like way too much time. So now what I do, especially like on the bigger ones, is I eyeball them. Mark where half is. Whoops, I think I skipped one. But it's amazing how, okay. Almost around. Now, okay, about a fourth to go, about 12 more to go. Yeah, I really wish they make that disc bigger, and I've kind of decided that if I can't find one bigger, I may find somebody with the CNC and manufacture my own, and talk to Trent, I might go and talk to Trent, see if he wants to start manufacturing these for me and make bigger discs. But my little screwdriver works just sweet. And there we go, one more, boom, boom. Okay, so that's done. Hard part now, getting the bowl off the screw center, because believe me, it is on there well. And what I do at home, there we go.
So that screw is designed to fit into that chuck,
Yeah,
so that's an accessory that,
actually, the chuck that you just bought has that screw in it. It's not as long as this one because it's a Nova. Nova screws are shorter. Okay.
Doug, I didn't understand what you were talking about when you were talking about a hat.
Oh, if I wanted to make this into, I divided it 48 times. Say I wanted to make it 96 divisions. I used to take my calipers and I used to measure each of these gaps, or at least a couple of them, then set it at half and start marking them off. Now what I'll do,
Okay.
Sway.
like so. Now if, because with this, I can't reposition it. If I do it like on the inside, and I'm holding it in the chuck, I can loosen the chuck up and I can move this a half a segment, tighten it up, and then do it that way.
No, I got it now.
But when I'm working on the screw center, I don't have that option, okay? Okay.
Just raise your index and pin post half the distance.
Say what?
Why couldn't you just raise your index and pin post?
Yeah,
And get them all the same?
Yeah. except if you look at these close, because there is a little bit of play here, these aren't all perfect anyway, but they're close. What we're gonna do, we're gonna pass this around, I guess. Ready, Ron? Now, that is unsanded, and I learned that there's no reason to sand it. You know, it's just a waste of time at this point. Okay, what we're gonna do,
underneath your platter over the right.
underneath where?
The platter.
There it is. Bowl 2. We'll show you how to burn these. I'm going to sit down in the chair and do that, but while that one's passing around, we're going to do the inside. Okay? We're going to take that out. We're going to take the screw center out. Here's where the front row might get a little bit messy.
Bring it on.
Says the guy with
Okay. I think we're okay.
Can you buy that indexing wheel here, or do you have to order that?
I ordered it. It is called ironfirellc.com. I can't remember where they're from, East Coast or Ohio or something. But yeah, I ordered it. And I think it was 35 bucks or something like that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this one to here now. So all I'm gonna do is put tool rack back on. I'm gonna try and be gentle, because I don't want to snap it off. And I don't want it to go flying. And what I'm going to try and do too is redirect my shavings as much as I can. Now I am getting a little vibration because I left these adapters in here. Normally, especially if I'm doing a big piece, I want my chuck right up against that headstock. But for this situation, I think we can get by with it. key is, don't drill that hole too deep. Now, one thing I'm gonna do, we're gonna quit there. I will this. Because I want to have this second bead up here on top, I need to know where it's going to be. So we're going to put it in. Let's see. And actually, I'm going to use the easy beater to kind of get rid of this little ridge I got. Okay. We're going to come in with this. I did find out one time, because you're constantly turning the lathe forward and back. Don't try and bead when the lathe's in reverse. It looks like the same surface color all the way across. So I think we probably have a pretty complete bead. We're going to take a look. A little there, a little there, a little there. Got a little, getting a little bit of burn, getting a little bit of fuzz, but we're going to take care of that later anyway. Yeah, we'll say that's good enough. Okay. To check the thickness, you can use these calipers, you can use figure eights, you can use whatever. This one here, if you, our good club member Dave Amos made this for me and told me to try it out and see how I like it. And I like it fine. The only thing I would change on it is I would put little division marks on here so you know if something is really 3/8 or if it's really a quarter. We'll take this a little thinner. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Now when I came to Loveland in the early 90s, and you know, they had the symposium at CSU, and I got involved in the turning club and all that kind of stuff. I really wanted to learn how to turn a bowl because I'd never really done it before, and when I did do it, when I had done it before, I'd always just used big scrapers and all that kind of stuff. Well, now I've been away from teaching and away from turning for about 12 years. I took a sabbatical. And now they were turning bowls using bowl gouges. It's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So I went to, I think it was Utah Symposium, because Richard Raffin was doing a bowl turning demo, and I wanted to see, and at that time Richard Raffin was like the premier bowl turner in the world, and I wanted to see how a professional did a bowl with a bowl gouge. Well, he was going away, and he was turning around, and he was going and doing all this. And then he got about to here, and he pulls out this beast here. He goes, okay. He goes, now we'll smooth out the bottom of that bowl. And to be honest, I was walked away from that symposium really disappointed. I was hoping to see a professional do a bowl with a bowl gouge and all that, because I thought that's what they were supposed to be doing now. Well, I got back to Loveland High School, and I took a look at all these big tools that we had on the thing, and I mean, they even have Richard Raffin's name engraved right on them. It's like, okay, he really does use this to do the very bottom of the bowl and make sure it's smooth and all that kind of stuff. Now, I have modified this over the years, and now I've got it as a negative rake negative rake scraper and all that kind of stuff. But if you feel the need, There's no sin in grabbing a scraping tool, okay? Don't think you have to do everything with this. Now, I think I can get everything with this. And we may not need to scrape. I got one little line right there and one little line right there. And you know what? After you do this 4 or 5 times, actually that's not too bad, but why not true it up a little? Now this one is the old Richard Raffin big beater and all that kind of stuff. I did buy one here from the store, the Sorby one. Thing I hate about it, if you go look at these on the rack, and all the new tools are coming this way, they're grinding them at about 90 or 85 degrees, which to me is worthless. So what I've done with this one so far, I put like a 60-degree bevel on the bottom and like a 30 on top. A couple months ago when Cindy Drozda did the demo and was using negative rake scrapers, after the meeting I asked her 2 questions because I'd already started working on this one. I said, do the bevels need to be symmetrical? In other words, do they need to be the same size? And she said no. But I said, does the included angle need to be 90 degrees or less? And she says yes. Okay? You can't go 85 and 30 and still have 115 degrees. Okay? It's got to be under 90 degrees, this angle, this included angle, for it to work. At least that's her opinion.
Daddy does 25, 25 now.
Yeah, and you know,
We used to do 40 times. We changed to 25, 25.
well, on skews,
No, this is on negative rate scraper.
not on bowl scrapers. If you have a bowl scraper 25, 25, you better have that tool rest really, really close, or you're going to get some vibration. This one is, where is it? I have one of Stuart Beading tools. Yeah, it's 25, 25, but it's also a ½ inch thick, and I have my tool rest about here when I'm using it. If you're doing, I mean, 40, 40 is fine. It doesn't matter. You know, this one, I just felt bad about paying $100 for a tool and then grinding away all that steel. So eventually, I'll probably put this one at 40, 40, just so I only have to set the guide once when I sharpen it. Yeah, that's my opinion, but I'm working it there slowly because it's like, God, I just paid good money for that steel. I hate to grind it all away. But yeah, so, okay, we're going to say that's good enough for that. Now, I know, yeah, that's pretty good. I've got a little bit of line there and all that. Now I'd start beading the inside, okay? Actually, before I do the inside, we're going to bring that top bead around the corner a little bit. This tool needs a little sharpening, I think, or something. It's burning a little, but it's not the normal. I normally use the 3/16 out of that set. Close enough. We're going to call that good. Okay. So now, we've got our outside turned, and this one's already burned. Sometimes I burn them
How did you
between.
burn it?
Okay, how do we burn it? Where's that one going around? Okay, let me have that. We're gonna take a little break from turning, and we're gonna do a little burning. Thank you. Okay, what I do at home is, I like to be comfortable. I do my turning out in the shop. I do all my burning and coloring at home, or inside in the living room. Because to be honest, I sit in my recliner and in front of the TV.
Does that leave scars when you fall asleep with that burner on?
I've come close. I was burning a platter a week or so ago, and all of a sudden I smelled something like, oh God, what's that? Well, then I looked down because what I had done was I'd kind of nodded off, and I'd put the burner up against my thumbnail. It's like, and luckily it didn't burn all the way through, but yeah, it does kind of smell. It smells like burnt feathers.
You must have a very understanding.
Which you don't, yeah, my wife, well, she likes the smell of wood. In fact, the other day I was working on a piece, and she goes, oh, what kind of wood is that? That's really, I really like the smell of that. I use a razor tip burner, as you can see. I bought it 5-6 years ago, long before I started working here. I bought it at Craft Supplies. Typically, my favorite tip when burning is the large, it's called the large rounded skew, I think, yeah. It's this one here. And normally, I buy the tools that are replaceable tips, because when I'm burning platters, sometimes I'll go through 2 or 3 platters on the same tip. Sometimes I have made it about 15 minutes or a half hour into a platter and have bent the tip and broken the tip and all that. The tips, the pens with the tips permanently attached are about 30 bucks. The pens with the replaceable tips the tips are about 6 bucks. It's a lot cheaper spending 6 bucks for a new tip than it is 30 bucks. However, I did just find out recently that these pens are guaranteed for a year from Razor Tip. So now if I ever break a tip, I just bring it back here and I return it. But this one is my, this is the tip I typically use, and actually we'll pass that around. And that's brand new. I've never used it before. I'll use this old one so you guys can see me burning. I use the red cord, which is heavier gauge. It's 16 gauge as opposed to 18 gauge. I think it's a little heavier, so it carries a little more current. Now, when I'm at home, I'm in my recliner, and I have a light right over my left shoulder. And I got my feet up because I got my recliner up and all that kind of stuff. We'll make this work. I don't like burning real hot, because when you burn real hot, you scorch the wood. When you scorch the wood, you got to fix the wood. I usually burn at around 5, and yes, these are bifocal safety glasses. These are only like 1.5s or 2s. But what I do is I hold my plate like this, or platter, and all I do is drag it. Can you see that oil?
Yes.
I drag it down the line. Now, because that shelf was not at the center, our lines are being a little curved, but that's okay. Now, what I like doing, because I get around it faster, is I skip 3. Oops. If you get off, oh well. You just back up a little. These are a little curved because our rest wasn't as high as it needed to be on that lathe. Well, you can see what I'm doing is I'm leaving 3 pencil lines in between, because that way I can get around the piece a lot quicker. And like I said, if I just had to do it one line at a time, it seemed like it was taking me forever. So this way I can get around it. And then I do the one in the middle, and then I do the other 2. I did have a guy at the Loveland Art Show last summer. He was looking at my platters. He goes, "Now, do you laser engrave those lines in there?" I go, "No, I hand burn them in with a wood burner." He goes, "Really?" He goes, "You could laser engrave them in, couldn't you?" I go, "Well, then that would kind of be more like production instead of art, wouldn't it?" Well, maybe. But, you know, I'm not saying it's good or bad. And trust me, there are days where I would like to hire somebody to burn some of these lines, but Mike Mahoney always used to hire people to do his sanding for him. If I could get somebody to burn my lines for me, I might be a happy camper. But I like doing it just because it's relaxing for me. You know, I'm there, I'm talking, still talking with my wife, I'm watching a little TV, I'm burning my lines, I'm doing what I need to do and all that, okay? So what I would do, how close are we? Oh, we're pretty close. Because I skipped 3 in between, look at that. We're already all the way around. That didn't take too long at all. Now, keep in mind on these small pieces, it doesn't take too long. On the bigger pieces, like I said, it takes about a minute a line. So now what I'd do, I'd split this in half and do the middle one. Now, I used to, when I first started doing this, David Nittman had showed me, you know, his technique and all that, and he used what was at that time called a beading tool, beading burning tip, that was actually, and I have some, I just ordered some from Razor Tip. We don't sell them in our store, and they're not really carried much. But they're kind of an inverted U-shaped tip, but what you have to do is burn each and every line. I had one of those tips when I first started doing this, and to be honest, I broke it. And so then I got one of these skew tips, and I found out that with the skew tip, I'm still kind of hesitating on every bead just to make sure I'm getting a good burn, but the length of the skew, this length here, is keeping me on the straight and narrow and on the, you know, keeping me in line and all that kind of stuff. Now, do I waver off course once in a while and all that? Yeah. But all in all, that shows that it's handcrafted instead of being manufactured in a store or in a factory. So I don't mind that. But that's how I burn the lines. And you just keep going. And you go and go and go.
Doug, what was the name of the tip of the skew, or what kind of skew?
This one is like the large rounded skew, I think it's called. Now when I'm signing my name on the bottom, we won't get to that yet. But people always ask me, how'd you make your name so little? Well, what I use for that, I'm going to pass this one down too, because I'm not going to use it right now. Oops. Thank you, Will. You're all right to have around. You know that? I don't care what anybody says. This is the extra small skew that I use for signing my name. And you can see the difference between that and that piece that we just did. But now you can also feel how smooth this was, and then now that we did lines, how it's now rough. From the edges of the burn raise up and it makes it rough. Okay? So what we're going to do with this piece is we're going to sand that off. And I've done different things and I've tried different things and all that. This technique here seems to work as good as any for me. I'm not a big Festool fan because Festool products are extremely expensive. I mean, you pay $400 for a router instead of, you know, 120 bucks, whatever. But their little sanding pads here are 50 cents a piece. okay? And they work pretty good. So all I'm gonna do with this, I don't really want to sand a lot, because I don't want to make my things flat. So we'll start with this grit and see what it does. All I'm trying to do, whoops, is get rid of those rough edges. Now, I don't have to sand all the way back in here and thump my fingers against the jaws and all that, because eventually we're going to put this in a jumbo jaws anyway and return the bottom.
Those pins you're passing around, are those permanent ones or are those all replacement?
The two that are going around are permanent ones. I typically use the replaceable ones, and in my little toolbox, I have these two tools, okay? Because as you're using them, they will start to bend. So I have a little needle nose pliers, and I go like that every so often to flatten it out and keep it straight. And once in a while, they'll loosen up a little bit. And so I take my little screwdriver and I tighten up the screws. I was using a ball tip one time, and I was pushing a little too hard on it, and I bent it badly. But then I found out that I really liked it better for doing decoration, because instead of having to, here it is, this was supposed to be straight, but now instead of having to go like this and burn, I can just kind of go like this. So ergonomically, it was actually an improvement over the tip. But yeah, I keep my little pliers and my little tip there all the time and all that. Let's see. But this is just a little box I have to keep all my burning stuff in.
You know, one of the tips that New Zealand Turner taught us is to use your pliers when it's hot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't become
Yeah.
brittle.
Yeah, when you're bending the tips and forming your own tips and stuff, you can form them initially when they're cold, like out of the nichrome wire. But once you heat them up once, then any other bending you're doing to them and all that needs to happen when the tips are hot. This is the new tip from Razor Tip now. This is their Beading tip. I got 3 of them. I got 3 different sizes.
Hold your finger behind it.
Oh, put my finger behind it? Okay.
Yeah.
But it's hot. And it works okay. Whoops,
It's
maybe
just
not.
not light enough to focus on.
Okay.
Put your hand behind it.
Here, we'll pass it around.
Looks like a little crescent moon.
It's like a little crescent moon. Problem is, you have to touch every single bead to make it burn. That, I started using it on some of my, that's what I did on the top rim of that bowl, was use that tip. Okay, so we're here. Now we've sanded this off. Let me hit it just a little bit more.
What grit are you using?
I pretty much went from, I have from 150 up to like 800. And this time though, I started at 240 or 320. And then what I do is I use these Norton pads. This one's 1,000 grit. This one is 1,500 grit. I'm just trying to make it, you know, soft and smooth again. Okay, that's pretty good. Now here is the difference. Now one we just passed around that I just burned was pretty rough. Whoa, that's all right. And that after 5 minutes of sanding, now it's a little smoother again, okay? Okay, so now we're to that stage. And we're to this stage here, okay? let's say we beaded the inside of that. And I should have shown you, basically it's the same procedure. You're just putting the tool in. Try and keep it perpendicular to your surface though. You know, don't keep coming in like this when your walls are this way. Come in perpendicular to it and move it around, okay? So this one's beaded and all that. It's not sanded though. So we'll sand the inside. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna show you how to fix up the bottom and how to when I'm sanding these, like I said, I don't have to get all the way in there and hurt my little fingers on the jaws because we're going to put this in jumbo jaws anyway. So all I'm doing is doing the top edge. Now I would decorate the top rim of this if I were going to. I would have done that already by now too, just so that okay, it's coming. Just so I could sand those burn marks off too. Okay, we're about done. Okay, good enough. Okay, we've got this all sanded, it's all pretty, it's all smooth and all that kind of stuff. Now, though, we gotta get rid of that. Okay, that looks pretty bad. You know, back in the old days, we didn't worry about those things, but now with chucks and all that kind of stuff, everybody wants a nice, pretty bottom on them.
Yeah, it looks okay to me.
Okay, let's get rid of this. We don't need it anymore. Now, we're going to use this set of jaws here. This is my one and only Nova chuck. I'm not a big fan of them, but I got this for doing small bowls and stuff. I could put it here on my big one, and I'd feel much more confident about them. First of all, the buttons. How many of you have the cold jaws for Nova chuck? Okay, a couple of you. First thing I do, or I would recommend you do, throw away the buttons that come on them. Because they, in my opinion, are pretty much scary worthless because they're straight-sided and they have a screw in that as you tighten the screw up, it pushes out on the side of the buttons. I don't feel real confident holding a piece of wood in there. These are one-way buttons off of their jumbo jaws. They are tapered, okay, a little bit, but enough to lock the bowl in place. Plus there's a steel sleeve in there that once you tighten the screw up, that's as tight as it goes, okay? But I feel much more confident with these than I do with the Nova buttons. Now, the other extreme, the buttons on my Vic mark, as you can see, are square, but they're tapered both directions. They have an outside curve here and here, and an inside curve here and here, so depending on whether you're going on the outside of the bowl or the inside of the bowl, you can turn these buttons to match that up. Plus, with that kind of taper to them, nothing's coming out of these when you're using them, okay? Now, that big bowl will fit on this chuck if I have the chuck all the way out and the buttons all the way to the outside, but I have to take 4 of the buttons off, put the bowl in, then put the 4 buttons back on, but it will fit. But that maxes it out at about 19.5 inches. So, we're gonna use this. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Nova chucks. I think Vic Mark are better. They're also more expensive for the money. These are fine. Don't go tell Wayne.
Can you buy the buttons separately?
You can buy the buttons separately.
Okay.
Yeah, you can buy these buttons in a separate package. Now, one thing I don't like about this chuck, and part of it is because of it will, right now I've got my key in the hole between 1 and 4, and it works fine and turns fine and comes out and all that. If about half the time, if I put it in the hole between 2 and 3, it jams in there so hard I gotta take a mallet and knock it loose and all that, and it doesn't turn right and all that. And so, okay, that'll work once I put it in forward. Doesn't work very good in backwards. Okay, we're just gonna blend this in a little bit. We're not gonna do a whole lot to the base and all that, but, and what I like using for this job, I'll use a big chuck or big gouge some of the time. I like my little detail gouges. My detail gouges also have a long swept back grind, like an Ellsworth grind on them, because that way I can get into narrow places and all that. It's just what I use. It's not saying you have to or whatever. You can set this down a little and you can speed this up a little. Actually, that looks pretty good. We'll touch it up a little bit with this thing here. We just have a little bit of a line there, you can see. Move this away a little more and raise it up a little bit. When I'm using my gouges, I'm using them in a shear cut so I have the handles drop down. Looks good. Good enough. Good enough for a bowl this size. There's a little bit of writing here on the bottom of some of my notes. I was writing down how long it took me to turn that bowl blank, and it was like 5 minutes to do the outside, and 10 minutes to do the burning or whatever. We're gonna power erase.
Oh,
Once in a while I do use one of those big erasers you use to clean off sandpaper. Those work pretty good. Okay, so now we've dressed that up a little. Good enough. And so what we're gonna do is beat it. We're starting at about center. First of all, I'm just marking these off. Now, when I get down to the bottom, I've got like a 3/8 or something. I could maybe get one more bead in it. I could leave it. I could do whatever I want. I don't really care. We're going to go ahead and say, what the heck. Let's do one more bead. Now, if you've done your measurements correctly, and you're not going to go through,
That's a voice of experience.
actually, I haven't gone through one beading yet. You notice I'm moving the tool, so I'm going into it kind of perpendicular to the slope. Okay, we're going to raise this up a little and come back around one more time. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind when you're doing this step here too. now I have done this once, is you need to make sure that bottom of your bowl does not stick out beyond this rim. I did like a medium-sized bowl a couple weeks ago, and actually it was a very nice spin top because this little tip here stuck down and it spun really good. Luckily I had enough material that I just went in and I turned it off and made it that. But make sure that you have clearance here so that the thing sits flat. Now what I would normally do at this stage, if I had a long enough stem in there, or if this were taller, is I'd continue these lines. And when I'm doing these now, I don't put the gauge back on here again. I just line up this line, draw it in, 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 draw it in. Then I come in and burn these, put it back on the jumbo jaws, sand that, make it nice, pretty and smooth, okay? So, what we're gonna do now, still have time, we're gonna leave that. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start coloring. Now, we're gonna end up with something like this when we're done. Hopefully. Now, when I'm coloring,
Pull that up here.
I started off under David Nipman's instructions or leadership or tutelage, whatever, and I started buying pens that were called, I think I have a packed one, maybe I don't. Pens that are called Prismacolor pens. Now the problem being is Prismacolor pens, here we go, only came in packs of 8 with the standard colors. Purple, red, brown, orange, tan, green, blue, black. So if you're doing colors that are only one colors and all that, these are great pens. They don't last a real long time because they're not very big, and and the tips are a little small, so they do wear out. But if you're just doing one color at a time, these are just great. A couple years ago, I was at Utah Symposium, and in the Super Wednesday sale, whatever, shed, were a box like this. It had about 30 pens in it, or 25 pens, and they wanted 15 bucks for them. It's like, oh, cool, we're gonna get that. That was about 2-3 years ago, just when I was just starting to do this. So I bought it for $15, okay? These pens are typically, if you buy them, I get them at Hobby Lobby, they're $8 a pen. I now have over 100 of them, okay? Plus, I still have my Prismacolor. These are Prismacolor, 10 different shades of gray, okay? And you get a little carried away, at least I do, okay? Then I've got some others too. I've tried this brand here. These are Prismacolors. See, I switched to these because then I could do, like that bowl where it goes different shades of green or different shades of brown or black or whatever. So that's why I got these, because I have, 15 different colors of green. I've got 15 blues, I've got, 8 reds, I've got, 10 purples, whatever. And Prismacolor, I never found the Prismacolors that were different shades of the same color, but now you can get these as well. And these are a double tip, they're hard tip on this end and a brush tip on this end. And these I get at Jerry's Artorama, I think, up in Fort Collins. These I get at Hobby Lobby. The girl at Hobby Lobby, we're like on a first name basis now. When I come in, it's like, oh, you need more pens? Like, yeah, I do. I actually have virtually, I walk in with my color chart of all the pens I have, just so I don't keep buying the same one time and time again, which I have done before, if I forget my color chart at home. But we're gonna start coloring. Okay. If you, if you don't understand colors, buy yourself a color wheel. You can get these for a couple bucks. And what it does is it tells me which colors are complementary, which ones are split complementary, triadic complementary, tetrad, whatever. And so that way I can say, okay, green and orange and whatever go together, okay? Some of you don't need to do that because you're already smart enough that you don't need to, okay? If you're using different colors of wood, try your colors on them to see what happens. You know, I use this yellow heart on that one big platter, and these are supposed to be blues. Half of them are pretty green, okay? It changes, okay? So, now, figure out your design. When I was still teaching, and I was teaching drafting, I did a whole bunch of these circular grids. Well, the problem with them, like this one's 120 divisions. I have them 36, 48, 72, you know, 96, 120, whatever. Well, the problem is, they're only this big. I started doing platters this big. These sheets don't work. Kind of, but not really. So then, I still know the guy who teaches the drafting classes over at Thompson Valley, and I went in there one day and I said, hey Mike, can I use your AutoCAD? He goes, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. Still remember how? It's like, well, barely. Now I have full-size sheets, okay? And I've done these in, again, like 96 and 120 and 144. Now I'm starting to do big platters in 192, so it's like, dang, need one more. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to make more of these. What I do with these is I come up with design opportunities. You know, like we always say, woodturners never make mistakes. We just come up with new design opportunities. Kind of same thing with designs, okay? I will sit at my dining room table and start putting out some designs. You know, messing with different colors, maybe messing with different shapes. You know, what do I like? If I find something I like, then I may divide the sheet into quarters and see what color combinations I like. You know, or something like that, or just doodling kind of thing, you know, and all of that. So that's an old one with a turtle in it. You know, here's one here with a couple different designs, you know. Do I like the peaks or do I like the diamonds, you know? And I look at those and figure out what I'm gonna use and all that kind of stuff. So what I did the other night, here's the one where I decided to end up going with this for that big piece of Pau Amarillo. What I ended up doing the other night is I sat down and I was playing with some different designs on, you know, kind of the same design but different colors, which do I like and all that, and I kind of voted on this one here, I think, yeah. So we're going to do this one here. So, what I need 49, I need 53, I need 19, where'd 19 go? Oh no, oh well, 17 will work. And I need 18. Okay. So now, once again, I sit back underneath my little light and have my little cocktail. That's just Diet Pepsi, by the way. And we're going to color. And again, I have my recliner, so I got my feet up. We're going to do this design here. So what I'm going to do, I'll just lay my pens there. This is a chisel tip, which I never use. This is a brush tip that I do use. Actually, we're going to go...
Those are the prison color again?
These are Copic pens, C-O-P-I-C. Ooh, wow. Okay, so I'm going to start. I've got my little chart there. I'm going to do the outside. Outsides are much easier than inside the bowls. Hollow forms are the easiest to bead in color because you only have to do one side. Platters are the next easiest because everything's flat and you can get to it. Deep bowls are the absolute hardest because you're in like this and you're bending your hand like this and you're trying to color and you're trying to keep things in order and all that kind of stuff. So we'll make it work. Okay, we need to go. And I'm doing the top of my squares now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And yes, the guy in the AEW magazine, he says you're supposed to go and you put little dots on all your little squares and the color you want to color them later on and all that. It's like, oh my God, I would go nuts. So what I do is I just have my pattern at least somewhere near me so I can see it. Have I screwed up before? Yes. If you screw up, either, number one, like I said, woodturners never make mistakes. We just come up with new design opportunities. Or you get your little Dremel tool with either 150 grit diamond thing on it or a little fine sanding and you sand off where you didn't want the color to go. Okay.
Does your colors ever bleed across to the square?
Not very often because the burning kind of cauterizes and gives you a dam. I've talked to several people that have used dyes, and these are actually an alcohol-based dye in a pen. But they are archival quality and museum quality and all that. And if you're careful, I haven't really had much of an issue with that.
So is it ethanol, Doug?
What's that?
Is it ethanol? You get high when you're doing this?
I don't know. I need to try that a little more, I guess. Now, as you're doing the designs, you'll notice like all the platters and stuff over there, you start to think in patterns of groupings, what makes 4 or 6 or whatever, so it's a continual thing. I tend to work in groups of 4 because these are supposed to be kind of symbolic or reminiscent of Native American basketry, and number 4 is a sacred number to the Southwest Indians. It has to do with the 4 seasons, the 4 directions, the 4 times a day, the 4 stages of life, and just all different, the 4 races of man, just all different kinds of 4s come into play. And so you start thinking in groups of 15 or in groups of 30 or whatever, depending on how many divisions you're doing in your coloring. Okay, so now I've got 2 of these done on top, but I still need to do the bottoms of these squares. So what I'm going to do, flip it over. Now the hardest part for me, well not really, but kind of, or what takes me long, is coming up with designs. I have several books on Southwest basketry. I have an instruction book from the Navajo Basket School that's like an old school they used to have. And also you can get design ideas off of the internet and stuff like that, but
and we'll be closing up in about 15 minutes. Right.
if some of you need to go and buy something, go ahead, you're not gonna hurt my feelings. we're just gonna focus on one of these now. Whoop, there's the dark green. Can you see it? Actually turquoise. See that?
Yep.
Okay, now we're gonna go lighter. Oh, I gotta get one more pen. Okay, cool. Okay, and we're gonna do the next one. And I'm going kind of fast on this, but these are. But it's kind of like anything else, you know, the turning is okay and the burning is just time consuming, but when you're doing the actual coloring, then you're actually seeing something come to fruition. And it's like, cool. And to be honest, there's some of my designs that once you put them on wood, they don't look as good as they did on paper. And to be honest, there's some that probably look a little better on wood than they do on paper. But it's like anything else, I'm trying to stay the pen and, okay. And people ask, they said, oh, do you do the dark colors first or the light colors or whatever? It's like, I don't know that it makes a whole big difference. As long as you do the right color in the right order, run the right squares.
Does that dry almost instantly, so you?
It dries pretty darn quick. Once in a while, if I go over it, like twice or something, so long as it's so going on to bare wood, it dries pretty quick. If I come back for some reason, like and change the color, like darker or something like that, then it maybe doesn't dry quite as fast when it's going over the top of an existing color. But we'll pass this around and pretty quick as soon as I get done with this diamond. Let's see how we're doing on time. We're doing kind of okay. The good thing is, as I get closer to the center, I'm having to color less squares. Thank you. I might have to take you home with me. Well, you're all right for cleaning up after me. Okay, make sure I'm not getting lost here. Which I have been known to do. And any other questions, just shout them out. I'm a trained professional now. I can color and talk at the same time. It took a while. Years of training. Okay, that's good. Do this one. And we'll pass this around. And we'll be done. Last one. And we'll pass it around. Now, it is easier if you do a pattern where instead of doing one square at a time, like here, now I can do 3 at a time. It definitely makes it go quicker. Got it?
Yeah.
Cool. But that's about it. You know, it's not for everybody. If some of you want to try it, go for it. It is not. It can be very time consuming. Like I said, that big bowl there, by the time I get done burning it, it is gonna have almost 27,000 little squares that will need to be colored or whatever. And no, I don't color them all typically, but it can be as extensive as you want. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah?